All right, there we go. So thank you guys so much for your patience. We're gonna go ahead and get started with chapter 2. Chapter 2 is generally not that long. As you can see, there's only like 20 slides versus like 50 that we did yesterday. So it's a very short chapter. If we have time, we'll cover a little bit of chapter 3. But basically what we're gonna do today is a bunch of terms. Terms are very important for the exam because we need to know what they're asking before we can answer the question. So pretty much with the commissioner, we're going to learn a little bit about who the commissioner is. If you guys want to take a screenshot of this, because this is pretty much like self-explanatory. I don't want to spend a lot of time on glossary, but commissioner is basically the head of the Department of Insurance. So when you guys get your license issued, it's going to say the Commissioner of California. So that you know that it's the head of the Department of Insurance. Okay. Now, it talks about consent. I'm sure you guys all know what consent means, right?
Yes.
So giving permission to do something, right? In the exam, it might say the client will need to consent before what? Consenting means giving permission. Disclosure, it actually self-explanatory, revealed information to help someone make an informed decision. So think about it when you're dating. Let's say you would carry like a disclosure about you. It's basically like a summary of you in order for that person to make a decision whether or not they want to date you, right? So disclosure is the same thing with insurance. It's pretty much revealed information in order for that person to make a decision of whether or not they want to buy the insurance. Grace period. Grace period is like anything. Grace period, think about it like, hey, somebody's going to have grace for this amount of time. So period after the due date of premium in which the late payment may be made without a penalty. So a lot of times policies have like a grace period of 15 days, 30 days. You guys are going to need to know that for the exam. So definitely take a screenshot of that. Lapse. The word lapse, I always think about it as like falling, right? Like lapse, it fell. Policy termination due to non-payment of premium. So whenever you guys hear the word lapse, not just on the exam, but also in the trainings appointments that you go with me today, lapse means that it ended, okay? It fell, like lapse, like it's not in force anymore. It's terminated. Rescission means something different. It's also cancellation. It also means termination, but now it's more like a bad thing. Somebody had to cancel on you. That was maybe the insurance company, okay? So taking back, cancellation. A lot of times it's due to fraud. So this word is mostly going to be mentioned on the quizzes about fraud. Renewal. So renewal, it's a continuance of insurance policy beyond its original term. So it's not like a renewal, like, hey, I'm going to renew my, I don't know, my bank account. This is basically in life insurance language. It means that you're going to continue it beyond its original term. So you're going to like extend it more time. Okay. Non-renewal, pretty much what? Discontinuance of an insurance company, insurance policy. So these are very important things to know. Now there's going to be a couple of definitions on the exam, just a couple that I know you guys can pass those questions without having to really focus on like learning everything, because check this out, contracts. What is a contract? We already learned this yesterday, that it's a written agreement and it's legal, right? Enforceable by law because both parties agree to it, right? Tort. Whenever we see the word tort on the exam, it's meaning that it's non-contractual, private, civil, or wrong. So it could be like the contract was tort, right? So make sure that you're like writing yourself some notes of how you can understand these keywords, because there's intentional tort and then there's unintentional tort. So unintentional pretty much is that, hey, you know what? I acted without proper care. I like neglected the situation, unintentionally, right? But then there's intentional where the person is actually causing harm to another person. So there's going to be two types of torts. Let's make sure that we're reading the question properly in order to fully understand, okay, is this going for fraud or is this maybe like unintentional? Okay. Now there's the contract. This is probably just one question on the exam about how many elements does a contract have. And I've only seen it once. So you can't afford to get it wrong because it's like not that hard. It's one of those easy questions that you want to get right. So it's going to say, how many parts is a contract broken into? Or how many elements does an agreement have? So agreement is contract. So it's the same thing, right? So there must be a definite offer by one party and another party must accept this offer. So there must be what? A definite offer. You must need to know what you're being offered, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you're gonna get into something, wouldn't you guys agree that it would be nice for you to know what you're getting into?
Yes.
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 So the offer basically happens when you submit the application. So let's say you're submitting an application for a credit card, you know what you're applying for before you apply, not after the fact. So acceptance takes place when the insurer approves the applicant and issues a policy. And then basically it's letting you know that a written instrument in which a contract of insurance is set forth. So that's part one of the 4. Now this is part 2. Competent parties. This is going to be very, very like highly mentioned in the exam. Competent parties. What is the word competent mean to you guys?
Mentally stable. I will think of it.
Means that you can act like in your own capacity, right?
Mhm.
So, Alma, we have somebody coming in. Alma. Okay. So whenever you think of the word competent, just think of yourself, think of the word that somebody can act on their own capacity without like any help, right? And then we have Alma on the call. Alma, if you can just tell us what team you're from. And if you can have your camera on. What? I'm sorry?
On this one, Dad, on this one. Moises?
Moises Esteves?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So we're on chapter 2, Alma, and just kind of tune in with the call, okay? So competent parties, you guys, they're gonna want to trick you with this question. They're gonna want to throw in there something about like a person, a minor, a minor who's like intoxicated or something like that, just so you kind of can like stay away from like the actual definition, even though a minor is technically not competent. So we're gonna look at what makes someone competent. I know somebody that took their exam said, hey, they asked that somebody that went to college, and I answered that question that it would be somebody that attended college. That would be false, okay? You don't show you're competent by going to college, okay? So let's look at what makes it competent. Legal age. Mentally competent to understand the contract. Not under the influence of alcohol or drugs. Now, let's say I'm 21 years old and I have a brain disease. Would that make me competent?
No.
No. Let's say I am 45 years old and I'm a college graduate and I had a sip of alcohol that night.
Can you repeat it again? Sorry.
let's say I'm a 45-year-old person and I went to college and I graduated and I'm legal age and I went to college, but I had a sip of alcohol that night. Like I had a cup of alcoholic beverage. Would that make me competent? The word is automatically no.
Well-
Right? Even though we're like already getting too technical in our minds, like, well, one drink won't like, you know, I know we're like we're all wanting to say that, but for the purpose of the exam, anything involving drugs, alcohol, any physical, mental disease, or anything under the age of 18 is not a competent person. Okay. And if we're wanting to sign them up for life insurance without them being competent, it's technically a violation of the elements, okay? So now we're gonna look at legal purpose. This is what? Element number what?
3.
Number 3. Now legal purpose. So we already have what? Number 1, agreement. That's number 1. I hope you guys are like, not looking so much at the definition, but looking at the elements. So element number 1 is agreement. So there has to be an agreement on both parties, right? Then there has to be what? Competent parties.
Yeah.
And then there has to be what?
Legal purpose.
A legal purpose, exactly. And it says purpose of the contract must be legal and not against public policy. In a life insurance policy, it must have both insurable interest and what?
Consent.
Consent. Do you guys remember when the person needs to have insurable interest?
At the time of the application.
Exactly. So they might want to throw that in there along with the other part. Okay, so make sure like you're like, oh, okay, this is a legal purpose of the contract. And if it has insurable interest, then the client must need to be interested at the time of the application, because they might do something like that where they're asking you 2 questions in one. A contract without a legal purpose is considered void. Cannot be enforced by any party. So if it doesn't have a legal purpose, therefore it's not a contract and it cannot be enforced. Okay. Now the 4th part of the contract or the agreement is the consideration. Something of value that each party gives to another. So Bianca, if you're applying for life insurance with the company, what value are you getting from the insurance company?
To be insured, to be protected.
Gustavo, what value are you bringing to the insurance company?
I'm sorry?
Okay, so the question says consideration. That's the last part of the contract. In order for there to be a consideration, something of value needs to be given from one party to another. So Bianca already said what value she's getting from the insurance company, and that's to be insured. Now, Gustavo, what value are you bringing to the insurance company? It's right here. You want to read it?
Oh, payment of premium and answers in application.
Yes. So the insurer, the value that the insurer is bringing is what?
Promise to pay.
Sure. What? I'm sorry?
The other one promised to pay in the event of loss.
Yes. So they are bringing a promise that, you know what, you pass away, we're gonna pay. And then the person that's buying the insurance, they are also bringing something of value. And they're bringing what?
Application, oh, money.
Payment and application
Their premiums,
or the premium.
right? So this question, remember, I know it's a lot of information, but this question is 4 elements of a contract. It might ask you what they all are. It might not. It might just want you to prove that you know that there's agreement, competent parties, legal purpose, and lastly, consideration. And then it has a tip right here for you guys. And it says, when you see the word consideration, think money. Right? So let's think a little smiley face with the Benjis. Okay. So now special characteristics of an insurance contract. So now kind of the same, but now we're going to see what words they are going to be asking. So there's a word called adhesion. Adhesion, we're going to look into it, what it means, but it's basically like when you guys see like adhesion, like think about a glue. Like what is an adhesive glue does?
Sticks.
Like what you're, like if it's 2 parts, it's sticking both of them together.
It sticks this together,
Fuses.
right? So does it semi stick it together? Some glues don't, but let's just think that that's not the purpose of the glue. The purpose is for it to glue it together. So think about it as like either it glues it or it doesn't, right? So adhesion means either you take it or you leave it. Okay, so it says it's prepared by one party and accepted or rejected by the other. So insurance contracts are drawn up by the insurer and the insured has little to say about it. So I'm writing up the contract. Do I want to know what Bianca thinks about the contract? Maybe, because she's going to read it. Am I going to take her opinions into consideration and be like, well, you know, Suli, you wrote right here that you may not cover me if I'm intoxicated. Yeah, I'm not. Okay, so maybe you should cover me if I'm intoxicated. No, you take it or you leave it. Right? So that's pretty much what it's telling you. It says like, think like no negotiations. The way I think about it, it's always take it or leave it. It is what it is. We can't have any say on it. Right? The only say you can have is basically, sure, I'll keep it, or no, here, I don't want this contract. Got it? Okay, so
Okay.
conditional contract. So conditional contract is what it sounds. Does anyone know what conditional mean?
Conditional,
The word conditional? Do you guys know what the word conditional means?
Certain conditions, like there are certain things that have to be agreed on by both parties.
Yeah, let's Google it. Because I really want you guys to get like very like common sense. Okay. So certain conditions, yep. A conditional or clause, subject to one or more conditions requirement being met. Yep. What is a conditional example? A conditional sentence tells what would or might happen under certain conditions. It's most often contains as an adverb. If this happens and that, if that happens and this. When I think of the word conditional, I think of like, if you meet these requirements, this is gonna happen. right? Something temporary, something short, something not very promising, right? So certain conditions must be met by the policy owner and the company. So example, insured must pay the premium and provide a portfolio of loss in order for the insured to cover the claim. So if I'm trying to get insurance and I'm trying to get $1 million in coverage, but I don't want to pay a premium, am I meeting a certain condition?
No.
No. No. Why does that person have any obligation to pay for my death if I don't want to pay anything? Right? So both parties must actually have an agreement to something. And it actually says on the tip, if both parties agree to the conditions, then the contract can be executed. So think about when we get life insurance for someone. You're applying, it doesn't mean that, hey, we already decided to insure you with all these medical conditions that you have, with all these previous records that you have. It doesn't mean that. It just means you're applying. So therefore you may have conditional coverage, right? Now, if something happens and we don't like what we saw in your medical records, or we never received a payment from you, then we have the very right to end the contract, to not even put it in force. Does that make sense? Now, if we both like it, if I come back and I say, hey, Gustavo, I am gonna insure you for $40 a month, and I already saw that you had, I don't know, high blood pressure, but that's okay. I'm still willing to insure you. Now, we both met what?
We met an agreement, like,
Uh-huh. We both agreed on it. You agree to pay the $40 and I agree to cover you with or without your medical conditions,
right,
right? So therefore now it's not
Conditional
a
agreement.
conditional, yeah. Now goes into a contract being executed. Okay, so can you guys tell me again what a adhesion contract means? Without having to read a lot on this.
a contract that is bind?
So what do you mean by that?
Like bind, like, they say, that brings two parties together, like,
I don't think
let
I
me
see
see,
that
contract.
definition here, but think about it. I didn't mean to confuse you with the glue, but it's basically like it's glued or it's not, right? Either you take it or you leave it, right? The only reason why I mentioned the glue is because of adhesive.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
That's even though it's like two
Take it or
separate
leave it.
words, like it's the only reason why I brought it up. Somebody mentioned it and I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But adhesive is
So-
not really binding anything together. Adhesive is like you either take it as it is or you leave it. I'm not changing anything. Right?
So it would be like a contract that is drawn up, whether you like it or not.
Correct.
So you decide if you want it or not.
Correct. What does it say right here?
No negotiations, correct?
No negociable. But I can give you $3 a month. Nope. But what? But right? Like we're not negotiating anything. It's staying the way it is. That's what adhesion. Okay.
Okay.
Now a conditional contract. What? We must both what?
You
Most
must
both,
agree on a certain point.
Yes. So basically the certain conditions must be met before it goes into force. And in order for it to go into force, we must both agree to the conditions. Okay. And then it goes into aleatory. Aleatory, you guys, I like to compare it to marriage. And a lot of people who I say this to, they tell me, Suli, I saw the question on the exam. I thought about what you said about marriage and I got it right. So marriage is one of the only relationships, it could happen while you're dating, where you feel like one puts in more effort than the other. Right? So for example, I don't really like to take out the trash. My husband doesn't really like to cook. When he's taking out the trash all the time, he probably feels like he's putting in more work than me. When I'm cooking all the time, I feel like I'm putting in more work than him. Right?
That's
And
a
I know
conditional contract.
we're not gonna agree to the conditions, right? So why do I compare aleatory to marriage? Because marriage is a particular relationship where we're sometimes battling that, oh, I put in more work than you do. You put in more work than I do. It's the only thing to compare it to where you feel like it's unequal, right? I know most relationships feel that way. So
It's like it's almost one-sided.
let's check it out. So an aleatory contract is a contract that means that there's an exchange of an equal values, right?
Equal value.
So what in the world does that mean? Bianca pays me $100 a month, and if she passes away, God forbid, in 2 months, how much is the company gonna pay her family?
100,000.
100,000.
100,000. So you see how it's unequal? You see that?
Right. Mhm.
So Gustavo, you pay like maybe like $400 for 4 months, and then you passed away, and then your family received $4 million. Was that ever equal? Did you ever end up putting those $4 million just like the insurance company did?
No.
No. So obviously what aleatory means is that there's an equal exchange of values. The premium paid by the insured is small compared to the amount paid in the event of a loss. When you're reading this question, aleatory, like really tell yourself a story. My story was marriage, right? And then what did I think? Oh, they're not putting in the both efforts. Perfect. And then you read the question and it's gonna say, all of the following are aleatory examples except, and then maybe all of the examples are gonna say, John pays $2 a month and receives 20,000. Perfect, aleatory. B, John paid 20 years of a life policy for $20,000, passed away and his family received $25,000. They're gonna wanna like equal it. It was still not the same. He paid 20,000 but received 25,000. Right? So like really work your brain and be like, okay, I need to look for the one where like the efforts were equal, and that's the one that it's not. I hope I'm not confusing you, but read the question thoroughly, because on aleatory, they want you to know that the answer, that you know that it's unequal amounts. Someone is giving more than the other. Okay? Got it? Can we skip?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Now this one, what you were saying, Gustavo, one-sided. It's actually unilateral contract. You guys all here know Spanish, right? So
Right.
uni comes from the word Latin uno, right? So uno, unilateral contract. Only one of the parties of the contract is legally bound to do anything. So in an insurance contract, the insured makes no legally binding promises. However, an insurer is legally bound to pay losses by a policy in force. Do you guys get that? Or do you want me to read it again?
Can you read it again, please?
Okay, so it's a one-sided, okay? Only one person, and remember, person, it can also be an insurance company. Remember, we talked about this in the very beginning? So
Right.
in a contract, there's two persons involved. There's Alma, who's paying the policy, and there's Primerica, who is collecting the premiums. Now, only one of you is actually legally bounded to do something. Only one of you. So what does that mean? That you are not legally obligated, did I say that word right? To pay me, but I am legally forced to pay you if you die. Does that make sense? So it says, however, an insurer means insurance company. So really pay attention to these words, like insurer. Insurer means the insurance company. It's the one who's covering you. So an insurer is legally bound to pay losses by a policy in force. Right? Only one side must do something. Imagine you're paying like $50 a month, $100 a month, $300 a month, whatever you're paying every single month. And then the company, and then you pass away and the company says, well, I didn't have any legal obligation to pay you. Like there's no legal obligation. Like we were just gonna like check it out. You know, we were just like kind of dating, but I didn't have an obligation, right, to marry you, right? So technically in the insurance world, once you're paying a company, they have, they are legally required to pay for the death. But let's not get too technical. Let's not say, oh, but this company didn't pay. Yeah, we don't know what the contract said. If the contract said if the death, I'm only gonna pay accidental death and the person passes away from like natural death, then of course they're not legally forced to pay that death claim because they told you in the very beginning that it was only gonna be accidental death, right? You're learning the definition of unilateral, which all you need to know is that only one person is legally bound to keep their promise. Got me?
Right.
Okay, perfect. So personal contract. In general, an insurance contract between the insurance company. So between the insurance company and the individual, insured cannot be changed to someone else without written consent from the insurer. So you guys, this is very like self-explanatory. What makes me think that suddenly I don't want to be the one covered? Now, like in my brain, I came up with an idea that I want my husband to be covered, and like without even like writing it or without even making changes, right? It doesn't work like that. The person that's insured cannot make any changes. We cannot make any changes without a consent, right? Without having the insurance company say, hey, this is what's going to happen, right? At the end of the day, they're the ones going to pay for the death benefit. So they need to know. Would you guys agree? Yeah? Okay, perfect. So now we're going to go into legal terms, okay? Legal terms in the insurance world can get a little like mind, like a puzzle. But if you guys take a screenshot of these and just kind of review them, as you go, I think you will be fine. So representation, all you need to know is that when you are making a representation, basically you're making a statement that you think it's true. So, but it's not necessarily that it's guaranteed to be true. So let's just say like, oh, I saw the child fall from the building. That's a representation. You saw the child fall, but it's not necessarily true that the child fell. Maybe somebody pushed him, right? Maybe he slipped. Maybe he actually was intentionally wanting to fall from the building, right? So a representation just basically means something that you believe is true. You're making a statement. Got it? So answers may be changed or withdrawn prior to the application being delivered, but not after. So just because you made a statement, it doesn't mean that it cannot be changed as long as it's done before I hand deliver you your policy. Does that make sense? Okay. So misrepresentations, these are untrue statements that can void the contract. So just when you see the representation, just think about it as like true statements. And then whenever you see miss, like, oh, shoot, you missed it, right? It's not true, right? And this could what? What could happen, Gustavo, if you make misrepresentations in a policy?
There will be a penalty to pay.
Actually, no, you'd be surprised, but there's no penalties. Look, what does it tell you here that could happen?
Violation, or which one? Oh, these are untrue statements that could void the contract. Is that what
Yeah,
it says? Oh,
yeah.
can't see the rest of that. Yeah, contract. Oh, because I thought I saw something else that said that, something, if somebody, it said
It's
something
if
about
you're-
misrepresentation, and it's $1,000 on an agent, it's $1,000 minimum. And for the first violation, and then for the second violation, it's up to like I think it was like 5,000 to 30. No, what was it? I know I saw
Sure.
something like that.
Make sure you're reading the question because there is a fine and there is a penalty, but for what?
Or material.
Material.
Or material.
Okay. Misrepresentation.
Okay, so not all misrepresentations have a penalty. Which ones do have a penalty?
Material.
Material, exactly. So statements that would alter the underwriting decision of an insurance company, if intentional, they are considered to be fraud. So misrepresentation is serious, but material representation is very serious. You get it?
Can you
No.
repeat it again? Sorry.
Yeah. So I'm gonna compare it to this. So let's say you're at a store and somebody catches you saying, I'm gonna steal that pen, And you're like, oh, I'm gonna steal it. But you don't steal anything. But because they heard you, hey, you can get kicked out of the store. Right? Now, if you actually steal it and take it with you, what happens?
You're gonna get arrested.
You're gonna get in trouble. Yeah, you're gonna get fined. So material, right? Like una cosa material. Like that's how I think of these things. Thank God I'm bilingual, right? Because when you're quizzing, you're gonna think misrepresentation, fine. Oh my God, that's a fine. But that's not a fine. Misrepresentation, it doesn't mean that it's not serious. It's telling you right here that misrepresentation is serious. Hey, you going around in the store saying you're gonna steal stuff is serious, but actually stealing it is even what?
Very serious.
Is now more serious, right? So it says violation could be
Right.
guilty of a misdemeanor, fine up to 25,000, imprisonment, and for no longer than a year. Got it? You guys got it?
Yep.
Okay. Perfect. Now we're gonna look at warranty. What do you guys think of when you hear the word warranty?
Extra protection.
Extra protection? Okay, what else do you guys think of? Just like extra protection, that's it?
Well, yeah, because I think about if you, well, let's say I bought a phone and like they
Like the warranty in it?
yeah, the warranty. When the
Okay,
company's like a year, and then if I want more, it's gonna cost me like $100 and something for 2 years or 3, something like that.
yeah. So on this exam, like, let's kind of scratch that off. I mean, it could help. You know, I know how some things can help and then some others like don't really help, right? So a statement considered to be guaranteed to be true and becomes part of the contract. So pretty much what they're saying that warranty is that you're actually saying that something is true and it definitely is proven to be true. Right? So you're saying I don't have, you know, this certain condition and I prove you that I don't. Express warranty is a statement in the policy that becomes part of the written insurance contract. So it's actually, it's that big of a deal that they're gonna write it in the contract. Now, implied warranty is just pretty much answers on the application that are like assumed. They're not unwritten, they're not written. They're like assumed, right? So it really just wants you to know that you know the difference between expressed and implied. So as long as you can prove that implied means it's not guaranteed, it's not something that was written on the contract, you just assume that it was, then you'll be fine. Violation of material warranty on either party entitles the other to rescind the policy. So if any of you guys violate this warranty, whether it's the applicant or the insurance company, they can actually rescind the contract. And rescind means what?
So
Cancel. Yep, got it. They can actually say, hey, no more. No more. We're canceling on you, right? Because they found that there was something on there that was hidden or that there was something on there that was violated. All right, so I'm not gonna go over this. I don't think it's that important. You guys can take a screenshot, but materiality, pretty much, we have already been covering a lot of this word. So it's disclosure of all material that allows both parties to decide if they want to agree to it or not. That's pretty much all you need to know. Let me see. The insured is entitled to know advantages and disadvantages such as a premium increase, ratings, and the length of the terms. So this is not like super important. Concealment. So we talked about this the day before yesterday, that ladies wear something under their eyes to hide what? Or to do what?
to conceal
Black guy.
To hide like dark
my
circles.
eye bags, dark.
So concealment, what's going on with concealment? Something is being what?
You're withholding.
Covered up.
Yeah, something is being covered up, something is being withheld, something is being kept away, it's being hidden. So intentional withholding of a material fact that is crucial in the making of a decision is a concealment. So failure to disclose known facts. So if you know the person smokes and you're putting that they don't smoke, you are intentionally withholding information, right? Insurer can rescind the policy whether concealment was intentional or unintentional. So, oops, I didn't mean to lie. That doesn't make it okay. And that doesn't make the company, and like, that doesn't force a company to still insure you. They can technically decline the application whether or not it was intentional lie. Okay? Questions? No?
No.
There's a quiz at the end. Rescission. We already said rescission was what? Remember we talked about this?
Insurance can receive. Insurance can rescind a contract if any of the following occurs.
Yep.
A false material representation.
So rescission, just think about it kind of like the word resigning. You guys know what resigning means, right?
To quit.
To quit. So rescission just means, hey, I'm canceling on you, right? I can void this on you if I want to. Got it? So important terms: application, policy riders, cancellation, renewal, non-renewal, grace period. We covered all that already. You can take a screenshot. Perfect. Important terms. Now we're going to talk about something you guys haven't seen. So this is rate and premium. Now, when you think of rate, think of what actually the price is for someone to cover you. So the rate is the actual cost. So remember I told you that there's like a law of large numbers, like a pool of a lot of people in it, right? And then they like run like a test and see like how soon they're all gonna die based according to their age. So that's how they also get the rate. So they get to say, okay, it's gonna cost me 20 cents a day to insure Bianca because she's young, she's a female, and she's under the age, under the age of 30. Well, that's the rate. That's how much is costing the company to insure you. That doesn't mean that that's how much they're going to charge her. Does that make sense? So let's say it cost $1 a day to insure Bianca. A month, that would be $30 a month, right? But if your premium, they say that your premium's gonna be $38. And that's two separate things, right? Just because I'm paying $38 a month, it doesn't mean that that's how much it's costing the insurance company to insure me. Remember, they gotta throw in fees in there for maybe like, you know, printing of your policy. Some companies charge for advertising, right? Like Farmers, AAA, right? Companies that are big on marketing. Maybe they can throw in an extra $10, right? For you to pay for that. So those are two separate things in the exam. Make sure that you're really reading the question about rate, because rate is going to ask you for the definition, and that's the price the insured pays for insurance. Now, premium is a payment from the insured to keep the policy in force. So if they ask you the formula, I doubt it, but it says that it's the rate times the units of insurance. So let's say it's like $1 a day times like 100,000. Let's just say. Right? This would be crazy expensive. That would be 100,000, but it's just for an example. Let's say it's costing them 0.01 cents to insure you. Right? That's how they determine the premium. So don't get too technical about this. Just know that there's two separate meanings about rate and premium. And you see how easy chapter 2 is? Super, super easy. Do you guys have any questions on chapter